Build a personal brand when you do too many things. Here's the question that probably keeps you up at night. Not the existential ones about the meaning of life, though those visit too. This one is more embarrassing, more practical. It's the one that shows up every time someone asks, "So, what do you do?" And you pause. Not because you don't do anything, but because you do too much. You're a designer who writes, a marketer who codes, a coach who makes music on the weekends. You have 5 browser tabs open that represent 5 completely different versions of the life you could be living. And building a personal brand? That feels impossible. Because every piece of advice assumes you're one thing. Pick a niche. Go deep. Be the person known for that one thing. But what if you were never built to be one thing? For about 99% of human history, we were hunter-gatherers. And here's what that actually meant. You had to know how to do everything. You needed to track animals, read weather patterns, identify 200 different plants, treat a wound, navigate by stars, build shelter, negotiate with neighboring groups, and teach your children all of the above, often in the same week. Hunter-gatherer survival depended on adaptability. Each individual was expected to be a generalist, able to track and hunt animals, identify edible plants, navigate the landscape, and create tools. Their environment required flexibility to respond to different challenges. In that world, the multi-passionate person wasn't scattered. They were valuable. Your curiosity wasn't a distraction, it was a survival mechanism. And your brain? It was shaped by that world. Neuroscientists studying our hunter-gatherer ancestry have found that our curiosity and threat detection systems evolved over millennia, working together to ensure that we make optimal decisions in an unpredictable, uncertain world. Curiosity wasn't a personality quirk, it was wired into the operating system. Then the Industrial Revolution happened. And with it came something that fundamentally changed not just how we work, but how we think about identity. Assembly lines didn't need generalists. They needed people who could do one thing, fast, repeatedly, and without deviation. The Industrial Revolution marked a significant acceleration in the trend toward specialization. Workers on assembly lines were expected to perform a single task repeatedly, becoming highly specialized in their role. Over time, specialization didn't just become economically preferred, it became morally coded. The person who commits to one path is focused. The person who doesn't is flaky. The specialist is serious. The generalist is lost. One writer, Robert Twigger, coined a word for this monoculture of the mind. He called it monopathy, the cultural worship of the narrow specialist, the one-track expert. And he argued that it wasn't natural, it was manufactured. So here's the problem. You're carrying a 200,000-year-old brain into a world that was designed about 200 years ago. Your brain was built to forage. For food, yes, but also for ideas. It was built to make unexpected connections, to get bored once a skill was mastered, to move on and learn something new. Dopamine, that neurotransmitter everyone talks about, doesn't just fire when we receive rewards. It fires in anticipation of them. The seeking itself is the reward. That's why starting a new project feels electric. That's why learning something new feels like a kind of hunger being fed. That's not a lack of discipline. That's your ancient brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. But modern personal branding tells you to kill that part of yourself, to flatten it, to choose one hat and never take it off. And when you can't, you tell yourself something is wrong with you. For people with many abilities and interests, the abundance of choices is described as both a blessing and a curse. Full of possibility, but also a source of real, debilitating stress. Not because they're broken, but because the framework they're being handed doesn't fit the mind they have. Here's what nobody tells you about personal branding. It was never really about what you do. It's about what you stand for. A specialist builds a brand around a skill. You get to build a brand around a perspective. Think about the people who have actually broken through with diverse interests. The creators, the thinkers, the writers who seem to do many things and somehow make it all coherent. What they've done isn't pick one thing. They've found what some researchers call a through line, the invisible thread that connects everything. Idea synthesis and big-picture thinking are genuine strengths of people with multiple interests. The creative stage of deciding how to represent yourself is an opportunity to find where apparently unrelated talents are actually linked. and to blend existing strengths into something entirely new. That's not a compromise. That's the actual brand. Your interests aren't random. They're not a list of distractions. They're a constellation. And if you step back far enough, you'll see the shape they make together. Maybe you write and design and think about psychology, and what connects all of it is that you're obsessed with how people make decisions. That's not three things. That's one thing, expressed in three dimensions. The M-shaped life isn't about being mediocre at many things. It's about being fluent across domains in a way that creates something no specialist can. The connections you make between fields that don't normally talk to each other, that's not a weakness, that's leverage. So how do you actually build a brand from this? You stop leading with your skills and you start leading with your lens. Not, I'm a designer and a writer and a coach, but what do all of those things let you see that others can't? What problem do you keep circling back to, no matter which medium you're using? What is the question your life keeps asking? That question is your brand. Your personal brand is not about trying to be everything to everyone. It's about what makes you unique and the value you bring. And your story is what helps people connect with you on a deeper level and understand your motivations. You don't need a different persona for each interest. You need a frame wide enough to hold all of them, and specific enough that people know what you're for. The hunter-gatherers didn't have job titles. They had roles, and those roles shifted with the season, with the need, with the terrain. What stayed constant was who they were, and what the tribe could count on them for. That's the model. Not one skill, one character. One through line that the season can't erase. You were never the problem. The framework was. And now that you know that, you get to build a different one. One that actually fits the mind you have.